So I wanted to point out that you can see and you can watch some videos that I have made about some of these issues in a free MOOC. I mentioned at the beginning, an online open access course. And I put a few links here to, for example, a power plant tour, where you can watch me take a camera crew on a tour of the Dartmouth power plant, which burns oil. And so one of the things you could do is convey some of the ideas of why you have a certain amount of energy going into a power plant and only 50 or 30% comes out as electricity. So for example, that power plant tour URL will take you to that. There's also, I did some videos on renewable energy pros and cons, and there's one there. So I'm eventually going to get all the videos that I made from my online course and put them on a YouTube channel. And so if anybody's interested in watching some of these or having their students watch them, they can definitely send me an email on the last slide of today's talk. You'll see my email address, and so you are welcome to write to me, and I'll send you that link, or you'll probably be able to find it from just this one right here. The other thing is, if you come up with some nice little questions about the oil trains and you want to send them to me, or maybe some students and I will vet them for you and test them out. But if you work up a question or two like this, I'd be glad to see them. So please write to me about any of those. So I wanted to mention that some videos on energy are available in my course. I wanted to say thank you very much for signing in today, and thank you for the feedback I've had from a number of you over the years about the first edition. I look forward to hearing from you and your students about the second edition, and now we designed this to go only about 30 minutes so we could have at least 15 minutes or so for people to ask questions. So Nicole is receiving them, and she's going to feed them to me, and I'll do my best if I can to answer them. And while she's pulling together maybe the first question, Nicole, I was just going to say that just that our email addresses are right here, and we really do want to hear from you. So write to me, write to Nicole, write to Rick Relyea. Thank you.
All right, Andy, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. My WebEx is doing something very odd. So my chat isn't working right now. I'm not sure why, but I do have a couple questions that came in before. If you do have an additional question, please feel free to raise your hand, and I will unmute you and you can ask your question live. But we do have a couple questions that did come in before WebEx broke. The first is from Lindsay S., and she's asking a question about the AP Environmental Science exam. Is the APES exam still slated for a redesign in a couple of years? And if so, is it going to go the way of the AP Bio exam, which is now heavy on statistical analysis?
Right. Thank you, Lindsay, for asking that question. That's a great question. I have no affiliation with College Board or ETS, so I cannot answer in an official capacity. But I can tell you that in 2008 and 2009, I was on that reassessment committee where if there was going to be any kind of modifications to the AP exam and the course for environmental science, it was going to happen around that time. And nothing happened. So the committee that I was on made some very mild recommendations, and we just didn't, I don't know, I can't tell you what happened, but ETS just abandoned the project and they went on to other subjects. And you probably know better than I, but what was it? Physics is one, and Nicole, do you know, was chemistry another that had a redesign?
Chemistry, I believe, is now, they're working on it.
And bio and now chemistry. So at any rate, Lindsay, I don't have an official answer. I'm not an official representative of the College Board or ETS, but it doesn't look like it's happening anytime soon. If there were to be a change in 5 years or something like that, the way Rick and I have written our book, we think it's robust enough that it has the detail that if things were added in, we think some of those facts or a lot of those facts are already in our second edition book. But there really doesn't seem to be any indication And again, I don't know any of this officially, and I suppose there could be something going on right now that I wouldn't know about. But that has certainly been the story over the last few years. Nothing has been happening with a redesign. I should also point out that environmental science was one of the newest, probably the newest of the sciences. So it's not surprising that a course that was only 10 years old in 2008, 2009, there wasn't a whole lot to redesign. I hope that answers your question. Raise your hand or ask another question or send me an email if you want to pursue that further.
I have a couple more questions that came through before the chat broke. The second is from Ann M., and she's asking, for the examples described in Do the Math, are these added examples for use, such as the aviation problem that we added in? Are those available in the teacher edition? And I think I can answer this one, Andy.
Please.
We do have, so there are those wonderful Do the Math boxes that Andy and Rick created that are in the book. In the teacher's edition, we do have a similar problem that you can use in your classroom that has the same type of math skills involved. So while the question isn't identical, it does have similar mathematics involved, so you can get extra help with your students that way. I hope that answers your question. We had one more, actually two more questions come in. And the next question is from, I didn't actually get the name. This is when chat was being a little weird. But she asked if there would ever be a way to have students use calculators on the AP exam.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I was the founding chair of AP Environmental Science, and I honestly don't remember what we did or how adamant we were about yes calculators, no calculators, but that's certainly the rule now. And I don't know what the thinking is about that. And I share your frustration, if I'm fair in saying you have a little frustration, because real-world issues often don't have easily roundable numbers. And I like to find out, for example, how much electricity I use and how many megajoules that is. And so the answer is, for the immediate future, as far as I know, the rule is going to continue that there are going to be no calculators allowed on AP Environmental Science. And we've tried to respond to that with at least some of our Do the Math questions and some of the various problems we have in our book. We've made them sometimes a little bit more simple so they can be done by hand. But I've spoken to a lot of teachers who allow their students to use calculators sometimes, and then other times they give them practice not using calculators so they can do the more easy, sometimes the numbers are large on AP exams, but they're easily divisible, or it's easy to lop off 10 zeros from both numbers and things like that. But I don't know what to say. Just like when you live in the United States and you go to a big box store and buy a water heater for your house, it's in BTUs per hour. So I'm a believer in teaching students what BTUs are, even though that's not an SI unit. And our cars, everybody knows their mileage in miles per gallon, and miles and gallons are not SI units either. I'm a firm believer in just using what you see and what you face every day, but sometimes that doesn't lend itself to a no calculator problem, and so that is a little bit of a challenge. I definitely agree.